Hey, thanks for coming out. You know, you're actually the first Texas artist that I got on my YouTube channel. Um, so let's start from your humble beginnings. Where were you born?
I was born in Inglewood, California.
Okay, so what age would you move to Dallas?
I was 15. Born in California. My dad transferred our family to Charlotte, North Carolina for about 3 or 4 years. And then my sophomore year of high school, we moved to Irving, Texas.
Okay, so how would you describe your childhood growing up?
I would say very carefree. Um, I grew up in a time in California where I was very open-minded, and instead of telling your children what to do, it was more progressive. Um, they would ask us questions. Well, what do you think? Um, what's your opinion about this? And then eventually, my older brother Jeff, contestable, he said to my mom, "Mom, do you know anything?" And it's sort of been a family joke ever since.
Okay, so when did you start doing art?
Um, when I was a kid in California, my mom went to UCLA, and first she was an art major until she switched to education. And as a kid, she'd buy us T-shirts, and in the T-shirt packs there was like pieces of paper that would be in between, and she'd give it to us to draw. So I would say I would always have been an artist. I noticed things other people didn't notice, and in nature and so forth and so on, and that's still something that I possess.
Okay, at what time did you start venturing off into graffiti?
When I was 27, I met a guy named David Hawley. He lived in New York City, and he had a lot of energy, very positive, a very good artist himself. I'd seen him around. He'd always come in and draw at the bars I worked at, and he had very good ideas and hand skills. And I moved bars, and in an area that he lived, and he seemed to always be in the bar. And he said that he was going to go paint on storage space behind the building that I worked at, and he's going to do it Sunday. And so I rode my bike down there, and he was painting something, some letters that said DJ Zero. It was a local DJ, and he asked if I wanted to jump in, and I worked on the background.
Okay, when you first started, did you have anyone showing you the ropes, so to speak?
Um, no, because we were pioneers. We did by experience, learned on the job. There were only sucker caps. I might have done some stencils before that incident where a friend of mine had gone to Paris. His name's Kip Lott. He's also a photographer and an artist, and he gave me this book called Paris Stencils. And I decided I wanted to do a stencil. So I was looking at old cartoon books, and there was a character called Flip the Frog. And I didn't want to do him just like, Flip the Frog. So what I did is I just gave him one eye and a bigger eye. And so I started stenciling this character around Deep Ellum. In my concept of painting something, I wouldn't saturate an area. I'd pick a spot, and for that block, I would paint him. And then I did the DJ Zero piece with Mosquito, David Hawley. That was his name, street name, Mosquito.
Okay, you're one of the original writers here in Dallas, and there's evidence that solo artists was also coming to the DFW area as late as '86. Did you ever meet him or see any of his work?
Solo artist. I guess I didn't.
Okay, your first piece was in '88 or '89 off of Crowdist with Mosquito. How did that come about?
I think it was David's idea, or Mosquito's. It was just a really good spot on the corner. Had a lot of one-way traffic, and it was a really big piece. And incidentally, we painted it, and an older artist that had lived in New York in Manhattan took it upon himself to go down there and paint it out. That pissed us off, but it also kind of helped us out. It wasn't his building, so we figured out who owned the building, and then we got permission to do it. So if they came back or he called the police on us, which he often did with me, we could say, look, we got permission, bug off. And that was a fun piece.
Okay, so is that how you started getting permission for walls?
It was sort of out of necessity that I would get permission, and I wouldn't start off necessarily with permission, but once upon a time I was painting on the Ace parking lot, and he called the cops on me. And when I painted, it was usually on the weekends, during the day. I thought Sunday morning was a good day. This is before development is what it is now. It was basically a collection of warehouses. There were a couple clubs down there, Theater Gallery, Club Clearview, and a lot of working class businesses, warehouse storage. So the police rolled up on me, and they're like, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm painting a mural. And the officer said, is it a commission? And I said, yeah, it's a commission. He goes, well, how much you get paid? And I jokingly said, well, never enough. And they were cool and just rolled off. And immediately after that, I went around to Main Street, and it was a car body shop. And I said, hey, is it okay if I paint the back of your building? And they're like, sure, why not? Because, it didn't affect them. And the area was just very raw, urban area at the time. Nobody cared kind of thing. And so I got permission to paint the Ace parking lot, which turned into a really great thing for the early riders, and it created a place that was safe to paint. It was understood that you could go there and paint, and it created a lot of friendly competition, which pushed all of us to be better. And the area had some musical success going on, and I thought, like the New Bohemians, thought, there's a lot of really good artists, and we need a place to paint. And so to me, painting on walls is like instant gallery space, and it's just, bam, there it is. And so the Ace parking lot became kind of a phenomenon where kids from out of state would come just to paint there and see what was being painted. And all in all, it was a great place to come and paint.
Okay, so what crews were you in back then?
So Mosquito and I formed a crew called SKP.
Which stands for?
He came up with the name. It means Style King Posse. And, we'd sign our stuff, SKP.
Okay, so y'all was Dallas' first crew?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay, so in the beginning, it was you, Mosquito, Trip, and Shows doing graffiti in Dallas at the time. Was they a part of Style King Posse as well? And
No.
how did you end up linking up with those guys?
Probably from the bar I worked at. Trip was a bartender with me, He came later. A guy named Vince was worked there too, and he painted too. Scholes was from Fort Worth, and to my knowledge, he was the first guy that I ever saw paint downtown Dallas.
Okay. All right. So you started writing at the age of 27. Why did you start so late?
I went to art school first, North Texas. You know, comparatively speaking, we live in Dallas, Texas, and it's basically out in the frontier. You know, in our country, bigger cities are sort of the epicenters. New York City, you know, you've gone there and you come back, or you go to London and you come back and you realize that, you know, I live on the frontier.
Okay. How did you come up with the name Ozone?
So yeah, I didn't really sign my pieces, but I was doing a lot of work with MOSQUITO, and he started getting requests for characters, and the way we worked, he was really good at letter styles, and I would do the characters and the backgrounds, and that's how we worked as a team. So people were requesting characters, but it was my characters they wanted, and I realized that I was going to have to come up with a name. And incidentally, he would usually sign his name right by my characters. That was a little deceiving. So Ozone, at the time, aerosol art, or cans, there was some kind of thing that they were saying that the propellants were bad for the ozone. And I liked the letters. It had a O, Z, and an O in it. And I thought if I ever start doing letters, that might be a cool design element to work with. I found out that working with it it's not as easy as you think. It's a challenge. You know, art is a challenge. It's a puzzle. Sometimes things come easy, sometimes they're not. In the end, hopefully it looks easy. But just like anything else, it's a struggle. So the other thing about ozone was that it protects the world. It covers the world. Ozone covers the world. And I guess that's basically, you know, why initially I chose that name.
Okay, that's interesting. All right. So you're known as a character guy. How could someone tell your character apart from other people's characters?
Yeah, if you're an artist or a beginning artist, it's kind of essential to figure out your own style. So luckily enough, Flip the Frog stencil I did sort of initiated me doing one-eyed characters. So I just kept drawing them. As a young artist, it's important to get influence. So, you know, I was in art school. I got out of art school, and you know, initially I would look at a lot of cartoon books, history of cartoons, to see images like I might grab a head from one character. Say if I wanted to put a spray can in it, I'd look for an arm that looked like it was holding a can, another arm on the other side, and mix and match characters to sort of create my own character. And eventually, in repetitive drawing and stuff, I kind of figured out a formula, if you will, for my style of character. And it evolves, you know. Just like you guys out there, you evolve as a person, and the more you do something, and the older you get, your encyclopedia of subconscious grows, and you can pick from that and allow it to help you design things, and it's almost a comfort as you get older, and the more you put into something, of course, the more you get out of it. To be good at anything, you've got to really try hard, and it's frustrating. You'll get frustrated with something and stuck, but you have to push yourself to be better. And if you're an artist, this never stops. You don't get to a point where you're satisfied. You got to keep improving yourself as an artist and a person.
Okay. Did you ever write anything different, or has it always been Ozone?
I fooled around with a couple of things, but pretty quick, I came up with Ozone, and that's been it.
Okay. You would slow down for a few years until the second generation brought you back out. How did you end up linking up with those guys?
So they found me. They
Okay.
sought me out.
So do you remember the first person you met when they came to find you to get you back into doing it walls again?
I think the kid that was most enthusiastic was Mark at 27. He came out to find me, and he was tied in with the other kids in the area already, and then through him they all ended up in my studio.
So when did you end up meeting Ross 13, and what was your first expression of Ross?
Probably through the IC guys. First impression, he was good energy, good vibe, kind of like one of the people in your life that you just met, but you kind of feel like you already know.
Okay. What was your favorite moment or memory of painting with Ross 13?
Well, I think we did a couple things in the Pearlstone building, but we went to Paint Lewis, and that was kind of a big deal to go up there and paint Lewis.
What year was this?
Oof. Not quite sure.
Maybe like 97 or 8?
I think it was 98.
Okay.
And we had an incident.
What type of
A tragic incident. We got in a car wreck,
Oh, okay.
and we'd already painted one full day, and we went to like a gathering of all the riders, and we were right by the Cardinal Stadium, and it was one way, and I was driving, and we had rented a van. We were going back to the hotel because we had to get up early and paint, and as I was taking a right, out of nowhere, this car was bearing down on us at high speed, and my reaction was to floor it and turn it to the right. And what happened was, instead of hitting me directly on my side, it hit where Ross 13 was, right behind me. And the van did like 2 360s, went across the street and slammed into a tree. And I think I hit the side of my face on the glass pretty hard, but I was okay. And so Abyss was in the back seat. Let's see who else was with us.
Was Vert with y'all?
Vert was back there, and then another rider.
Maybe Tex or
Wasn't Tex.
Minus?
Um,
Ukron? I'm just naming out names.
Yeah, not this. I can't think of who it is for some reason right now. But Ross was like messed up immediately, and I tried to open my door, but I couldn't because that's the side I got hit. And what happened was, I was like, open the side door on the other side, and almost as soon as we opened that up to get out, an off-duty ambulance tech guy showed up out of nowhere, And he sort of took over. He knew what to do. And, he had a terrible concussion, and he hurt his back. And the cops were called, and I had initially got out of the car and started walking to the other car to see if those guys were okay. And the guy in the driver's side was screaming obscenities, so I was like, oh man. I took a U-turn, and the cops came. And what happened was, right after they showed up, there was gunfire underneath a bridge within half a block. And all of a sudden it was like, get down, get down. And we all had to get down on the ground. And incidentally, later I found out what happened. I was taken to the hospital in an ambulance with Ross. And he kept asking me, Ozone, what happened? I said, we got in a wreck. Ozone, what happened? He must have asked me 100 times what was up because he had a concussion. So we got to the hospital, and as far as that shooting was, somebody carjacked somebody at the corner down the street. And the person that got carjacked was at the hospital because they threw him out on the highway. It's a crazy night in my life, and my eyes started going dark, like on the side of my head hit, and so we were down to two guys to paint the rest of the mural, Vert and I.
Okay.
And that was a whole other experience without a car.
Okay. All right. So when the guys eventually found you, y'all would eventually form Infinity Crew or IC. Who came up with that name? Because I heard on a documentary that it was Tech's friend that came up with the name IC, and then I also heard that Ross 13 came up with the name. So what's the truth, since they was at your house when they came up with the name?
What happened is they met at my studio, and then we all met down at the Pearlstone building, and a whole group of guys, a lot of them I'd never met before, and so they were like, what name do you think we should name the crew? And guys were just sort of spitting out names, and this guy had dreadlocks, and I don't even remember his name, but he said Infinity Crew because we have infinite styles. And everybody's like, yeah, that makes sense because we all have different styles. And the possibility of infinity was very attractive to all of us. So that stuck. So we started the Infinity Crew.
Okay. Y'all started calling yourself the coldest crew in Dallas. Was that by default? Was that by default since y'all was like the only crew at the time, or who did y'all battle?
Well, the initials were IC, so the correlation is like ICs, from like Slurpees to ICs, so that was the correlation. A couple of the guys did a mural based on that concept of ICs and that bear.
Yeah.
So that's where that came from.
Oh, so y'all didn't
I think
battle anyone?
Chino
from OG Chino.
Yeah, he did some really cool work while he lived in Dallas, and he was part of that IC. So then it's sort of like coldest crew in town, IC.
Okay. Because that was like on the slushy cup?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, some of the best IC walls included you. What was your favorite wall that you painted with them?
I'd say some of the early stuff in the Ace parking lot. A little kind of more raw stuff. Graffiti for graffiti's sake, imagery. I still like that stuff the best, personally.
Okay, let's move on to Pearlstone. Tell us about Pearlstone and what year did you start painting it?
Pearlstone was awesome. The reason why is because the walls were so perfect, smooth, nobody bugged you over there. soon after we started the crew, what year do we get credited for starting the crew?
Technically, I think y'all started it, what, 95 or 96?
Yeah, along those lines, because we met down there and everybody saw these
Or
walls.
it might have been 97.
So look
97.
at these walls. These are great walls. Let's paint here. My studio wasn't too far. I'd go over there by myself. It was spooky. There was homeless guys living in these silos. One of them had these two knives like they were guns strapped to the front of them. And, they were kind of territorial, but if they saw you were minding your own business and just painting, they'd leave you alone.
Okay. Do you remember the first person to paint that spot?
Somebody in IC painted it, but I don't. Might have been Abyss or one of those guys.
Was you ever concerned about painting there, considering it was right around the corner from the Dallas Police building?
Not really. It was sort of like corralled in private. So once you went in there, you were out of sight, and it didn't seem like a place anybody in the right mind would go. It was spooky.
Okay. After y'all started painting at places like Pearlstone and Ace Parking Lot, y'all would eventually start painting at Hope Street. How did y'all find out about that spot?
I'm not sure who found out about it, but that was a dope place to paint. One of the crew guys found it, and they were all painting there, and they said, "Hey, we found this new spot." And I went up there, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, nice walls." It wasn't huge, but it became a place that we could paint, and with no fear during the day. Beefs happened there too, like any walls, but that was part of the process of
Okay.
creativity.
I remember seeing a lot of your characters up there. Was that like one of your favorite places to paint?
Yeah, the legal spots to me were a lot of fun because you can take your time, no pressure, and that's important as an artist to be able to not have to rush it, to take a look at it, to step back. You're able to move lines around to get your image up how you got it on paper, and it allows you time to perfect your craft.
Okay. What was your favorite character that you painted up there?
I did a character of a cat throwing up a fishbone.
Okay.
And I really liked that piece. It started to beef.
Okay. Speaking of that character, I do remember you dedicated one character to Marka, and it lasted for about a week before some toys started going over it, and you returned and did like a character vomiting. Why did you paint that? Was you getting sick of the toys going over the work that was up there at the time?
Yeah, it can be frustrating. You can spend some time on a piece, and obviously it's a nice piece, and then some kid comes along and tags over it, or messes it up.
Okay, how did you meet Marka, and what was your favorite memory with Marka?
I don't exactly know how we actually met. It's a little fuzzy. But he lived not too far away from my studio at his folks' house, and he'd come over a lot. And, his enthusiasm to learn as an artist, and, there are a lot of young, talented artists with potential, and I always saw him as one of them that I thought might have an advantage because he was so focused in on it. And I did oil paintings, and he'd say, "Hey man, how did you do that?" And I remember one time I answered to him, I said, "Well, I did it with my mind." And he sort of was like, "Oh, that's a good answer," kind of chuckled. And, he was straight edge and focused on art. And, I remember him just practicing his tag, drawing it over and over and over and over and over and over. And doing so, it became a really nice flowing tag. And I think he still, has a variation of that he uses today. And, out of all the kids, I thought that this kid, he's going to be successful at what he does. And he is. He's a very successful artist, and I'm very impressed with him. But
yes,
the thing is, it took hard work and determination, and he's not lazy, and he works at it, and he pushes himself, and he pushes through things, and he's selfish. He's selfish in that, his girl would be like, you're spending a lot of time doing that. But he realized that if he wasn't selfish and doing what he needed to do, that he couldn't get to where he is now. And all blessings to him, and respect due from all the things it takes. It's not easy. He's created a life for himself as an artist, and it took a lot of hard work.
Okay. So you eventually moved on to doing freights. What was your first experience like in the yard?
I may or may not have done freights.
Okay. I gotcha. Okay. Did you ever have a partner when you...
I'd go out with Dad and Marka initially a lot. Dad had a spot, and he had a couple spots, and it was fun, painting trains, or not painting trains.
Yeah.
It was at nighttime. There was time element. There was looking over your shoulder. I think it becomes
The feeling of,
addiction.
Yeah, definitely.
Not to get in and out, like you're getting over. One time I went to one of the spots that he showed me by myself, and I was painting, and the guy at the business behind noticed me, and he started like chirping at me. "What are you doing? You need to get out of there." And I smartened back at him like, "Mind your own business. I'm painting. Leave me alone. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm calling the cops." I said, "Go ahead." And so I finished up and got the hell out of there. But that was fun. It's the adrenaline that's associated with doing something like that, risky. But to me, the only thing really, to me, worth going to jail would be for my art.
Okay. Did you ever have a favorite piece that you ever did on the freights?
I don't know. I think it was just a black and white Ozone. I thought had a nice flow. With
Okay.
the character on the end.
Did you ever get chased or have any memorable raid stories?
Yeah. Well, we were on a layup in Garland one time, and it's a lot of guys from the crew, and a car rolled up into the warehouse next to it, and Bert said, "Cops!" And man, it was like a stampede of panic. We all took off the opposite direction. We were on the opposite side of the train painting, and we all got separated. At least I got separated. I ended up on the culvert next to 635, and I made my way a mile or so away to a Waffle House where I called my girl to come pick me up. And I had burrs all over me, and it turned out to be just a false alarm. He was paranoid or something, and it was just a car driving through there. So some of those guys didn't go as far as me, but they went back and they ended up painting. And you know,
Yeah,
my girl at the time came and picked me up, and you know, I was like, oh dang, I got all kinds of chiggers and shit from y'all motherfuckers.
Yeah, I think everybody painted at their yard at one point of time. All right, so around 98, you would eventually get out of IC. What was the reason that you got out of the crew?
Abyss.
Was it one of those things where you outgrew the crew? Because I know at that time, Mark and Chosen also left the crew around the same time.
You know, it was just the. It's hard to say, but there was a certain amount of the way some of the crew members were thinking that was so far different than my own. I felt like some of them were kind of disrespectful people and doing things that I wouldn't do and painting on places that, you know,
You wouldn't want to be associated
I
with?
wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't paint. And part of it is that, you know, I didn't paint on people's property. I didn't destroy things or just be malicious, just to be malicious. There's a certain amount of respect and choosing the right place for me that was essential. Like when I would paint in Deep Ellum, say I wanted to paint a character, and I did paint a character taking a piss. So I put it in a place where a guy would actually go around the corner and do that, but it wasn't hurting anybody. And so, you know, that was sort of my philosophy.
Okay. Did you ever paint with Minus?
Yeah, a few places. Minus was a trip because if you saw him painting, he was so focused on painting. It's like he didn't want to be bothered even talking to you, and you know I understood that, and you let him paint. But he had really good hand skills. He had good style. He was a nice person.
Okay. What was your fondest memory of Minus?
I think it was just his personality, and like Mark, he had a lot of enthusiasm and seemed to be like alive and well, kind of in there. And graffiti for graffiti's sake kind of person. Just a good guy.
Okay. What was your reaction when you found out he had passed away?
Well, being so young, I think there's a certain amount of shock when anybody passes, even if you expect it, but he was just a young guy with his whole life ahead of him, so just, you know, it's really kind of no words when these sort of things happen. It's just a shame.
Yeah, I agree. All right. You used to do painting gigs. I know you did work for Walker, Texas Rangers, which is a show here that was filmed here in Dallas starring Chuck Norris. How did that come about?
I used to have articles written about me in the paper or the Observer or the Fort Worth Telegram, and an art director somehow found and contacted me, and then you know, Walker, Texas Ranger, you know, depending on the theme, a lot of times it was like him against gang members. So whenever there was an episode with gangs, they'd call me up, and we would either paint in the studio or on site in alleys. I think one of the alleys was Bishop Arts District, and I think Mosquito and I were painting, and these little homies walked by. One of them pulled up their shirt and had like, you know, some kind of revolver in there, and we're like, dang, this shit's real. The areas has changed a lot now, but that stuff, exists.
Okay. You worked at the Perot Museum for Dallas for 26 years. What was that like, and do you have any interesting stories from working up there?
Oh yeah, I worked in Fair Park, which is an amazing place to work. It was called the Science Place, and then in 2006 it merged with the Natural Museum, so it was called the Museum of Nature and Science, and then later it became the Perot Museum. To me, it was a great place to work as an artist. It was a place where they recognized my creativity. I was able to do sculptures, a lot of murals. I got a light to shows. Traveling shows would come through. And sometimes I'd get to restore things from these shows, like Jim Henson's The Dark Crystals. Some of the original characters I got to work on and restore and paint on. It was a great place for me as an artist. What it did for me was it allowed me to be creative. There was always something new to do there. It was never the same. And when I'd get a gig, they were cool enough to say, all right, go paint that mural. And I could come back and have a part-time job and never miss a beat.
Okay. Well, we're almost close to being finished. Okay. So Dallas really only has two events, Style Fest and Trigger Fingers, and you painted them both. Which event is better and why?
I'm not sure one's either better or not. They're both good because it's basically aerosol artists coming and painting. In both places, there's been some really good work done, and I'm just happy they both exist. The organizers are different guys with different ideas, but that's just the way it is.
All right. So what do you think about what Stout has been doing, bringing in those talented artists for the Styles Fest event?
Well, it's sort of phenomenal. I've got to meet some real triple OG guys that were like the start of the whole movement, and just to be able to paint around some of these guys and meet them is like a dream come true, really. And Jap is connected. He's very connected. He knows more people than anybody that I've ever met, and is friends with them. And it's helped me get to meet some of these guys that we've seen in like subway art, and that's sort of like the Bible of the graffiti world. And PG 183, Nicer. There's so many more too that have come to Dallas and are going to come back, because that event is hosted by friends, and it's a very welcoming place and open place, and I can't wait to paint there again.
You're painting there this year, right?
Yes. Thumbs up.
Okay, we come to the last part. It's called 7 Deadly Sins, where I basically ask you to pick them, like who you would think would win a battle out of these two people. So we're doing the Texas edition now. So
Okay.
first one, we got Rex versus Tex.
I'm going with Tex.
Tex. Okay. Second, we got Ease versus Optic.
Huh. That's I don't know, because they kind of got different styles. But I'm throw that up as a draw.
Okay. 3, we have Vert versus Sloke.
I'd say Sloke. He's got amazing, style.
Okay, this one is more of like a bombing battle.
Sorry, Vert.
Det versus Set.
I think on numbers, that's got him way beat, and I'm going with him.
Okay, we got Worm versus Eon or Spore.
Well, I personally just like Eon's style. So Worm's got a great style too.
Okay.
They're both really good riders.
Next up, we have Ucron versus Sonar.
Oh, Sonar, no contest.
Okay, last but not least, we have Skills versus Haxiel.
Skills. Sorry, you guys, that I said the opposite, but that's
It's all
just
good.
my opinion.
It's all like opinionated. So I don't think anyone is gonna actually like get mad. All right, well, that's the end of the interview. I want to thank you for joining me today. Is there anything that you would like to discuss that we haven't already covered?
Just want to say, being an artist isn't an easy thing to do. But you got to keep trying. It hasn't been easy for me. Over time and persistence, it pays off. To be creative is a gift to me, and it's like a good friend when you're drawing or painting. Nothing else exists in the world, and I just would say just keep trying, develop yourself, try to be a good person and a good person to yourself, and the meaning of life to me is to help others and do good things and be respectful, and I'll just leave you with that.
All right, Dallas OG Ozone. Peace.